Good afternoon. My name is Grant Grabowski, and today I'll be presenting my research paper titled Customer Privacy and Profit, the Hidden Cost of the Digital Economy. Every time you search Google, scroll Instagram, or stream a show, data about you is captured and monetized. Most of us barely think about it, but the global market built on that data is expected to hit 650 billion by 2029. Today, I want to explore whether that value comes at too high a cost to consumers. To set the stage, data collection has exploded over the past 2 decades. Weston defined privacy back in 1967 as the right of individuals to control information about themselves, a principle that's become very difficult to uphold. Today, companies harvest data through cookies, mobile sensors, loyalty programs, and social media activity, often without users fully understanding the scope of what's being collected. Regulators have started to respond. The EU's GDPR gives consumers the right to access, erase, and transfer their data. California's CCPA gives residents the right to know what's collected and opt out of its sale. However, critics argue enforcement is inconsistent and regulations consistently lag behind the technology. Let's start with the argument in favor of data-driven business models because there is a real case to be made. Netflix. This is the most compelling example. Their recommendation engine, powered entirely by behavioral data, accounts for roughly 80% of all content watched on that platform. That's genuine value delivered to users. The free services model is another major argument. Google, Gmail, and Instagram are offered at zero costs, but they're subsidized by advertising revenue made possible through data collection. Without that exchange, many of these platforms simply wouldn't exist. Data also enables marketing efficiency. Small businesses can reach very specific consumer segments at a fraction of what traditional advertising would cost. And importantly, research from Cisco shows that consumers do recognize this value exchange and that companies with strong privacy protections can actually differentiate themselves competitively. The argument isn't that data collection is inherently wrong, but it's that when done transparently and responsibly, it creates genuine economic benefit. Now the other side, and there are four serious concerns. First, data breaches. The 2017 Equifax breach exposed the sensitive financial records of 147 million Americans. The settlement reached up to 425 million in consumer relief, but damage to individuals was already done. When data is aggregated at scale, it creates systematic risk that consumers cannot manage on their own. Second, the absence of meaningful informed consent. Research by Obar and Olderhoff Hirsch found that people spend a median of just 73 seconds reviewing privacy policies that would take nearly 30 minutes to read carefully under those conditions. Consent is essentially a legal fiction. Third, misinformation amplification. Algorithms trained to maximize engagement favor emotionally proactive content regardless of accuracy. This actively contributes to the spread of misinformation. And fourth, algorithmic discrimination. Bias training data reproduces discrimination in high stakes areas like credit scoring and hiring, outcomes that can significantly harm real people's lives. To bring in real-world industry perspective, I interviewed Hunter Van Horn, an information security analyst at Ford Motor Company in Detroit, Michigan. His role involves assessing data security risks and advising on privacy protective technology across Ford's enterprise systems. Van Horn highlighted that modern Ford vehicles generate enormous volumes of data: GPS location history, driving behavior, voice commands, and customers expect Ford to use that data to improve their experience, but they also expect Ford to protect it and not share it in ways that they haven't agreed to. Balancing that, he said, requires consistent dialogue between engineering, legal, marketing, and security teams whose incentives don't always align. He was particularly concerned about the industry trend of selling driver behavior data to insurance companies without clear consumer disclosure. calling it a line that, once crossed, fundamentally changes the relationship with the customer. His most memorable point to me was regulations always play catch up with the technology. Lasting privacy protection, he concluded, is ultimately a cultural challenge, not just a technical one. This topic connects directly to several core information system concepts from our course. The data lifecycle, collection, storage, processing, and analysis is central here because privacy risks arise at every single stage of that chain. Business intelligence and decision support systems are what transform raw user data into commercial insight. But when applied to personal data without proper safeguards, those same tools can facilitate discriminatory or manipulative outcomes. The CIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, provides the security framework under which organizations have obligations to protect the data they collect. Mason's PAPA framework from 1986 offers an ethical lens: privacy, accuracy, property, and accessibility. Current data practices frequently violate all three of the first dimensions. And finally, data stewardship programs and privacy impact assessments are the real world organizational mechanisms through which ethical or unethical data practices get implemented. The privacy problem has consequences at three levels. For society, the Cambridge Analytica scandal is the clearest example. Data from 87 million Facebook users was harvested without consent for political micro-targeting, directly threatening electoral integrity. Beyond that single event, the broader normalization of commercial surveillance erodes cultural expectations of autonomy. For business, the stakes are both legal and competitive. GDPR fines can reach 4% of global annual revenue. That's enormous for large corporations, and beyond legal exposure, consumers are increasingly willing to switch to competitors that protect their data better. For individuals, the harms are immediate and personal. Identity theft and financial fraud are direct outcomes of large-scale data breaches, and the chilling effect of pervasive monitoring suppresses free expression and erodes trust in digital platforms. My view is that the current data economy is not sustainable in its present form. The benefits of personalization and free services are real, but they've been achieved under conditions that are too often opaque and harmful. I'm not arguing for eliminating data collection. I'm arguing for restructuring the terms under which it happens. That means meaningful informed consent that users can actually read. It seems data minimization requirements, and it means a comprehensive federal privacy law in the United States, one that builds on GDPR while accounting for American regulatory context, replacing the current inconsistent patchwork of state laws. Most importantly, it requires a cultural shift that Van Horn described: tech companies treating privacy as a core value, not a compliance burden. To wrap things up, data-driven business models have generated real economic value, but under conditions that too often harm individuals and society. The key insight from both the literature and my interview with Hunter Van Horn is this: privacy protection is as much a cultural and organizational challenge as it is a technical one. Companies that treat it as a genuine commitment rather than a checkbox earn and sustain consumer trust over the long term. This research also deepened my personal understanding of information systems as a powerful social artifact that reflect and reinforce organizational values. Technical competence alone is not enough. Ethical judgment is equally essential for responsible data stewardship. Thank you for listening. That was my presentation.